From people being too close to demolition sites and buildings which almost resulted in domino effect to demolition crew's big blunder in Ohio and the building who started rolling down in Turkey, here are 20 building demolitions that went horribly wrong. 1. A close call. On June 30th, 2018, a demolition was scheduled, and just as people usually do, they all gathered to watch the building go down. However, what they did not realize was that they were way near the building, and it was not safe to be that close. Well, nature decided to give them a lesson they won't forget. And a rock came flying towards them, nearly missing a couple and some other people standing there. Hopefully, they'll try to be farther than they were next time. 2. Knocking a silo with a sledgehammer. Every once in a while, we all get stuck with the brightest ideas ever, but most of us know that the outcome won't be as bright as it may look like. However, there are some people who decide to act upon their bright ideas, and one such was this man who went with a sledgehammer and tried knocking down a silo. And just as any sane man would expect, the outcome was the silo crashing down and nearly crushing him. Luckily, he and his friends got away safely. 3. Esquimalt, BC. In British Columbia, a building was being demolished just as scheduled. It had to be done to make way for a future multi-use condo in Esquimalt. The pedestrians had been told to stay as far away from the site as possible, but do they ever listen? This one man had a fine idea to go running from the path, thinking he would make it to the other side in time. Well, he did make it, but that could have been disastrous if he was just a second late. 4. Ohio. As bystanders stood in Ohio waiting to watch these majestic towers come down, what they didn't know was that it was going to be a big blunder on the part of the demolition team. The 275-foot tower fell the wrong way, smashing a building that housed backup generators and knocking down two 12,500-volt power lines. The gathered crowd of media members, observers, and contractors had to run to avoid live power lines that flew around. And this is how a smokestack demolition in Springfield got enlisted in the army of failures. 5. Mall demolition in Cupertino. And this one's from Cupertino, where a mall was being demolished. A man who was watching the demolition from across the street recorded this video and showed it a large chunk of a wall falling away from the main building and towards the road. While most of the pieces landed within the construction fence, a cloud of debris, including large chunks of insulation, fell where cars were moving and people were around. Call it an extremely close call, because fortunately, nobody got hurt. 6. Manchester. The actual plan of the workers was to set up all the explosives and then have all those 4 towers come down one by one. And it was all going according to the plan until the 4th tower decided to take its own route. It switched direction and took out the Scrub Tower song itself. It was at a power plant on the Ohio River that was decommissioned and was in the process of being reclaimed just to the bare ground. And the tower literally said, "Buy 4, get 1 free." 7. Turkey. And this one you might possibly find funny, because I did too. The demolition of a derelict building in Turkey almost resulted in tragedy, when instead of crumbling to the ground as expected, it toppled onto its side and rolled onto its roof. Breathtakingly close to flats housing dozens of residents. The former flour factory ground to a halt, leaving clouds of dust, but no reported casualties in its wake, and it doesn't end here. Amazingly, the building, constructed in 1928, was still standing, albeit upside down. 8. Noida. The mighty Twin Towers in India were scheduled to be demolished on August 28, 2022. The buildings were cleared, and it was made sure that no one was around. However, everyone was worried about one thing. What if the dust or rocks damaged nearby buildings or people? Nonetheless, the demolition took place at the scheduled time. The buildings were reduced to rubble, but one unfortunate event occurred. Just as people feared, the debris hit a nearby village and some pretty serious damage was reported. Fortunately, there were no casualties. 9. Pontiac Silverdome. Pontiac Silverdome, which had been one of America's most iconic and popular stadiums with a history of hosting major events like the Pope's visit, a Super Bowl, and the World Cup, was about to be demolished. But things didn't exactly go as planned. Because what everyone saw was the first part of the process failed miserably, as only a few puffs of smoke were seen after a partial implosion. Apparently, around 10% of the explosives didn't go off. I guess the building wasn't used to implosions on a Sunday until 1 p.m. Despite this, the demolition company Adamo assured that the building would still come down, although the timeline remains unclear. 10. 2 cranes and a building. And this, my friends, is why you always double-check your demolition plans. It looks like these construction workers may have skipped that crucial step because the entire building just came crashing down on the crane. But don't worry, it's not all doom and gloom. In a miraculous turn of events, both cranes and their operators emerged unscathed from the rubble. Talk about a lucky break. Looks like these guys will be going home with quite the story to tell. The lesson learned here is to always triple check your plans before hitting that big red button. 11. Denmark. Ever thought bringing down a silo was as easy as pushing a button? Well, not for these explosive experts in Denmark. Apparently, they forgot to account for gravity and ended up demolishing the silo in the wrong direction. The 50-meter tower crashed onto a library and cultural center instead of its designated area, leaving investigators scratching their heads. But hey, at least no one got hurt, except maybe the egos of those experts. Maybe next time they should spend more than 6 months preparing for the demolition. Like, taking a basic physics class? 12. United States. This is the story of a dude who had too much time and too little patience. He wanted to tear down a church, so he hired an excavator and an employee to do the job. But the dude was a loon, and he didn't like how his employee was going too slowly, so he decided to take matters into his own hands and hopped into the excavator's cab. What happened next? Well, let's just say that the tower didn't fall in the direction he was hoping for. The moral of the story? Leave the excavator driving to the professionals. 13. A guy with a silo. This guy thought he could take down a silo with a sledgehammer. He was clearly feeling optimistic, but unfortunately things didn't go according to plan. After a few swings, the silo was still standing tall, taunting him, but he wasn't one to give up easily. He kept at it, swing after swing, until finally, success. Except not really. The silo only ended up collapsing after he used a tractor to pull it down with a chain. But hey, as they say, any DIY sledgehammer demolition you can walk away from is a win. Just maybe don't quit your day job to become a demolition expert. 14. CLARION refuses to fall. In Vegas, there's never a dull moment, especially when it comes to demolishing old structures. The CLARION Hotel was supposed to come crashing down, making way for a new development. But things didn't exactly go as planned. Despite a punch of explosives weighing more than 2 tons, the elevator shaft wasn't going down without a fight. It dropped 4 stories but remained standing like a champ. It's like the elevator said, "I may be going down, but I'm going down on my own terms." It's not every day you see an elevator shaft with that kind of spunk. 15. Australia. Australia, the land of kangaroos and unpredictable demolition. The crew in West Brisbane recently learned this the hard way when their plans to bring down a disused silo went hilariously wrong. Despite packing 100 kilograms of explosives inside the structure, the 50-year-old silo stubbornly refused to collapse after the detonation. As the stunned crowd watched on, the silo simply tilted to one side and refused to budge. The crew was forced to improvise using backhoes to give the building a gentle nudge to finally send it crashing to the ground. 16. Seaforth Tower. The demolition of 2 15-story tower blocks in Seaforth, Merseyside was expected to be a big blast. However, things didn't go according to plan. The controlled explosion left one building standing tall, while Churchill House couldn't handle the embarrassment and collapsed suddenly. It seems like it didn't get the memo about the simultaneous demolition. The residents of the exclusion zone were stuck outside their homes, waiting for the remaining tower to fall. Maybe they could throw a watch party and make some popcorn while they wait. At least Churchill House didn't leave its partner standing alone. 17. Broadway Bridge. A 93-year-old structure that had been deemed structurally deficient, but proved it had some strength left when a demolition team attempted to bring it down with powerful explosives. The charges went off cue, but when the smoke cleared, the steel arch and deck remained, damaged but unmoved over the Arkansas River. Onlookers gasped as the explosives went off with a loud report, but then murmurs and laughter filled the air.
You missed it.
As it became apparent that the bridge wasn't going anywhere. One observer caught the blast and audible reaction on camera and exclaimed, "Uh-oh, epic fail." It's safe to say that the Broadway Bridge won this round. 18. China. China had a demolition day in 2021 where unfinished buildings that had been standing for years finally met their end. Most of these demolitions went as planned, but one building had other plans. As it started to come down, it turned to one side and ended up falling on the wrong side. Not at all as it was supposed to. The viewers of the demolition video had mixed reactions. Some were stunned and their minds were blown by the amazing technique used by China, while others were concerned about the environmental impact of the demolition. Let's just say that this building had a mind of its own and wasn't going down without a fight. 19. Another close call. This is exactly what happens when you hire professional idiots for jobs they have no interest in doing. The wall just collapsed way out of the limit, which had been set as the safer side. Luckily, no one got hurt or injured as the pedestrians were asked not to use that road, but the workers were standing pretty close. It's fortunate they're still alive. 20. Leaning Tower of Dallas. In 2020, a building was supposed to be demolished in Dallas, Texas to make way for a new development. But things didn't go as planned. The explosives worked fine, but the elevator shaft remained standing because it was made of stronger materials. The shaft ended up leaning to one side, making it too dangerous for workers to finish off. Many people petitioned to keep the Leaning Tower as a new tourist attraction, but it was eventually demolished so the new project could begin. It was a bizarre scene, but it shows that not all parts of a building are made equally. 21. Building who won't go alone. And this building was like, "I'm out of here," and decided to go out with a bang. But then it was like, "Oh wait, I forgot my friend over here," and took a chunk of the neighboring building down with it. It was like a scene straight out of a cartoon, except it was real life. Thankfully, it didn't trigger a domino effect or we'd be in big trouble. It's a good thing nobody was hurt, except maybe some egos for the demolition crew. 22. An accident. The crew thought that they had it all figured out. They were ready to bring down that old building like a pro. But it seemed like the building had other plans. As soon as the demolition started, things went south and the building took the excavator and the poor guy in it with itself. And if that wasn't enough, the onlookers standing too close had to run for their lives. Talk about a demolition gone wrong. Let's hope they learn their lesson and stick to the plan next time. 23. A tired building. If you think you're tired after a long day, just imagine how this building felt. In a hilarious turn of events, a planned demolition went off without a hitch, until the very end. As the building came crashing down, it suddenly decided it had had enough and just stopped. Like a toddler refusing to eat their veggies, this building put up a fight. And to make matters even funnier, the remaining floors just hung there like a bad punchline. 24. An idiot at work. Things don't always go as we want them to, and this video is a perfect example of that. We see a group of people who hired a professional to demolish their house, but little did they know they were hiring an absolute idiot. The guy hops onto an excavator and goes full speed ahead, crashing into the house like it's nobody's business. I mean, come on, buddy, you were supposed to take it down brick by brick, not like a raging bull on a suicide mission. This just goes to show not all professionals are created equal. 25. A very close call. And just like you have till now, this guy in his excavator was just standing like an idiot waiting for what? The building to come down to him? Because that's exactly what happened, and I have no idea how stupid as hell people get so lucky and get away with just close calls all the time. If you have any idea, do let us know in the comments below. 26. An unexpected demolition. Unlike others, this man had barely touched the roof of the building, but it was like, wait, don't worry, I'll come down by myself. I guess the building had just accepted its fate and wanted to get it done as quickly as possible. What do you guys think? 27. Russia. The St. Petersburg Sports and Concert Complex opened in 1980 and was a hub for entertainment, hosting everything from sports competitions to concerts by famous artists. And it reached the end of its useful life and was set for demolition in early 2020 to make way for the world's largest ice arena. Demolition isn't as simple as just blowing things up. It requires extensive surveys and precision cuts to ensure safety. Sadly, something went wrong during the demolition process and the stadium suddenly collapsed, injuring several workers and killing one. This tragic event highlights the difficulties of safely demolishing buildings despite the industry's regulations in most places around the world. 28. Cooling towers. Eggborough thought they had it all figured out. They were going to demolish all 8 power stations in one fell swoop, but things didn't quite go as planned. Cameras captured the moment only 4 of the towers were successfully destroyed, leaving the other half standing tall and proud. The demolished towers, once a Yorkshire landmark for over 50 years, were reduced to rubble in a matter of seconds, while their counterparts remained defiant. It looks like Eggborough might need to rethink their strategy if they want to take down the rest of those towers. 29. Red Road. Glasgow, Scotland's largest city with over 630,000 people, was once home to the tallest residential buildings in Europe, the Red Road Flats. These massive apartment buildings could house 4,700 people at their prime in the 1960s. However, in 2015, Glasgow decided to blow them up. Despite some complications during the demolition, the towers were eventually brought down, and they did cause a little bit of complications while demolished too, but fortunately, there was nothing serious. The reputation had been declining through the years due to asbestos, gang violence, drugs, and lack of amenities. So the Scottish government made the decision to remove them. 30. Russia. It's not always easy being an excavator operator. Just ask the guy in this video who was trying to demolish a building but ended up demolishing a few cars too. As he tries to bring down a large chunk of the building, things quickly go awry and the debris comes crashing down onto some unsuspecting vehicles parked nearby. I'm no expert, but I don't think that's what they meant by demolition derby. Better luck next time, excavator guy. 31. Israel. This video shows shocking footage of a demolition in Rishon LeZion where 2 workers were injured. 2 Caterpillar machines can be seen toppling over and crashing to the ground. The workers were caught in the debris and suffered injuries as a result. The incident occurred during a demolition project, but the cause of the machines falling is not clear. Injured workers received medical attention and an investigation was launched to determine the cause of the accident. 32. Building mishap. In China, on December 30th, a 22-floor residential building demolition in Liaozhou didn't go exactly as planned. The initial blast successfully broke the building into 2 parts, with one half tumbling sideways in a cloud of dust. However, disaster was narrowly averted as one half of the building crashed sideways to the ground instead of crumbling into a contained heap of rubble. To make matters worse, the other half of the building was left still standing but leaning precariously to the side, which was even more alarming. Fortunately, nobody was injured and it provided some entertainment for the onlookers. 33. Old factory. So there was this old factory, right? And it was supposed to be demolished because it was, well, old. But when the demolition experts tried to bring it down with explosives, something funny happened. The explosions went off, and we saw smoke and a little bit of dust, but the building just stood there like a champ. It was like, what? Is that all you got? and the old factory's still standing there, proud and strong, defying all attempts to bring it down.